Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you are a returning person, if you are new to the channel, welcome to Larry's House of Hockey. So we're back at the memorable series playlist again. We're up to 1997. Now I was trying to find some, I was trying to find a good one to go with, and I thought, I could have picked the Western Conference Final between Detroit and Colorado, but I thought I would look back at the first Stanley Cup the Detroit Red Wings had won, their first one since 1955, and so I figured I'd go back and I would take a look at the final, even though it was, it was definitely memorable. It was a 4-game sweep. It was the third. The third 4-game sweep in the Stanley Cup Final. Some about the finals in the mid 90s. It's almost like this, we just want to get this done. Let's get the hell out of here. It's pretty much what was going on in the 90s. I mean, 95, 96, 97, 98 all ended in 4-game sweeps. It was nuts. Not very competitive at all. But I thought I would take a look back at the 1997 Stanley Cup Final. Now, I do have another Red Wing jersey that I plan on getting this put on. So, and yes, it will look fantastic when it's put on. But yeah, I have a Red Wing jersey that will look fantastic. That will look fantastic on. So let's take a look back at this. Let's take a look at these. Let's take a look at these teams. So the Detroit Red Wings. That's the one thing about sometimes the way this light is above here. But we take a look here at the Detroit Red Wings. In 82 games, they finished with a record of 38, 26, and 18. I'm switching around the 6 and the 8. They finished 94 points. Good total, good for third in the West. Their road to the Stanley Cup Final, it started in the conference quarterfinal against the St. Louis Blues, where they won that series 4-2. Then they go on into the conference semifinal against the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and they toss them aside 4-0. Then they go to the conference final where they play the Colorado Avalanche. They became big-time rivals the year prior. Big-time rivals. But they got even for the year prior. They got even. They knocked them off 4-2. So they go to the Stanley Cup Final. They have a record of 12-4 going into the Stanley Cup Final. Not bad. Now the team they're playing the Philadelphia Flyers. Pretty good team. They had a pretty darn good record. I think a lot of people were thinking, "Hey, this is their chance. This is the best chance they get. The best chance of that particular time." In 82 games, they finished with a record of 45, 24, and 13, 103 points. So it's a 9-point difference between the two teams. Not horrible. Definitely not horrible, but they start off their playoff run in the Eastern Conference quarterfinal. It starts with the Battle of Pennsylvania against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They toss them aside 4-1. Then they go to the Eastern Conference semifinal. They play the Buffalo Sabres. They toss them aside 4-1. Then they go to the conference final where they play the New York Rangers. Now this was the last great shot of Messier and Gretzky as teammates, and we're just a couple years away from Wayne retiring, and it wasn't even close. Philadelphia just dominated them. They beat them 4-1. So they enter the Stanley Cup Final with a record of 12-3. Two pretty good records. Now, of course, Detroit, you have this team that just 2 years prior was in the Stanley Cup Final and got just smoked by the New Jersey Devils in that neutral zone trap. Now, you saw with the talent of the Red Wings that they were a team that was looking like they could be Stanley Cup champions in the near future. When you had Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, you had Slava Fetisov, Vladimir Konstantinov. You had the Russian Five basically, and they were just an incredible looking team. So you figure, this is a team that's gonna probably make some noise. Well, the same could be said for the Philadelphia Flyers. The Philadelphia Flyers, they come into the Stanley Cup Final. They've got the Legion of Doom line that was just terrorizing everything. Eric Lindros, John LeClair, Michael Renberg. Three guys who were they were incredible. They were so hard to stop. They were just, Eric Lindros was at the top of his game at this point. And, LeClair, of course, LeClair, a veteran, a Stanley Cup champion, looked like, he'd been revitalized. And I think a lot of people were thinking the Flyers were going to, when you looked at it all, you're thinking, how is Detroit going to stop the Legion of Doom? Well, they definitely kind of did. So we get into it. We get into game one. In game one, now Philadelphia has home ice. Philly has home ice here. Not that made any difference. But we get into game one, and at 6:38 of the first period, shorthanded, it is Kirk Maltby from Chris Draper. Two guys on the, quote, grind line. That's what they called that line. That Kirk Maltby, Chris Draper, and I believe Tomas Holmstrom were on. They called them the grind line. They weren't the big stars, but I'll tell you what, they would grind you down. So it's Maltby from Draper that gets the Red Wings on the board first, shorthanded. But just about a minute later, on the power play, Philadelphia ties it up. It is Rod Brind'Amour from Eric Lindros and Yanni Niinimaa. So, Philadelphia, hey, they get on Detroit strikes first. Philadelphia, they battle right back. They tie the game. Then at 15:56, unassisted to make it 2-1 for Detroit, it is Joey Kocur. He was another member of that grind line. And, he was a fantastic, underrated. I would say Kocur was relatively underrated. I don't think a lot of people really gave him a lot of credit for how good he actually was, especially in big moments. But he makes it 2-1. So it is 2-1 at the end of the first period. We go into the second period, and Detroit gets a 2-goal lead. At 11:41, it is Sergei Fedorov from Larry Murphy and Darren McCarty. Darren McCarty, another player that just tough, and you didn't really want to mess with him out there. He was, like I said, he was a very tough player. So the Wings are up 3-1, but Philadelphia, they battle back. They get within one. 17:11. It is John LeClair from Renberg and Lindros. There's your Legion of Doom line. They make it 3-2. That is the score at the end of 2 periods. But not quite a minute in to the third period, 56 seconds in, it is Steve Yzerman putting the Wings up by 2 again from Larry Murphy. And that is your final. That ends up being the final. The Wings win game 1 4-2. You had in goal, of course, you had Mike Vernon for Detroit and Ron Hextall for Philadelphia. Vernon stopped 26 of 28 for a .929 save percentage in game 1. Ron Hextall, not that great. 26 saves on 30 shots for an .867 save percentage. So not the greatest there. So we get into game 2. We have a goalie change in game 2. Starting in place of Ron Hextall is Garth Snow for the Philadelphia Flyers. Now we start out first period. Yeah, Garth Snow didn't look that hot right away. At a minute 37 into the first period, unassisted, it's Brendan Shanahan making it 1-0 Red Wings. Then on the power play at 9:22, it is Yzerman from Murphy and Slava Fetisov. 2-0 Detroit. But they get down 2-0. Does that bother the Flyers? Do they get down on themselves? No, they do not. Because at 17:42 on the power play, it is Rod Brind'Amour from Yanni Niinema. 2-1. So the Wings lead is cut in half. Then at 18:51 on the power play, it's Brind'Amour again from Niinema and John LeClair. 2-2. So the Flyers fall behind 2-0. They battle right back, tie the game at 2 apiece. Unfortunately, that's as far as they got. In the second period, at 2:39, here's that grind line again. It's Maltby from Joey Kocur. 3-2 Detroit. That ends up being the game winner. And then in the third period, at 9:56, it is Brendan Shanahan from Martin Lapointe and Sergei Fedorov. That makes it 4-2. That is your final in game 2. Same score as the first game. 4-2 is the score. Mike Vernon stopped 29 of 31 for a .935 save percentage. Vernon was just on fire in this playoff. He just was unbelievable. Garth Snow stopped 24 of 28 for an .857. So not the greatest performance there. They thought, hey, maybe we'll switch goaltenders and maybe things might be a little better. Yeah, they didn't prove to be any better. So Detroit goes in home ice advantage. What home ice advantage? So Detroit goes into Philly. They win those first 2 games. They go back home up 2-0. We go into game 3, and this is kind of where you knew this series was pretty much over. Was after this game right here, game 3. Game 3, Philadelphia strikes first, though. Philly gets on the board first in game 3. At 7:03 of the first period on the power play, it's John LeClair from Eric Desjardins and Rod Brind'Amour. 1-0 Flyers. Good start for the Flyers, right? Yeah, it goes south pretty quick. Because exactly 2 minutes later, on a power play of their own, at 9:03, it is Steve Yzerman from Vyacheslav Slava Kozlov. Makes the game 1-1. Then, a little over 2 minutes after that, at 11:05, unassisted, it is Fedorov, making it 2-1. Then at 1900, at 19 minutes, thinking military time here, 1900. We're at 1900 hours, everybody. At 19 minutes, it is Marty Lapointe from Doug Brown and Sergei Fedorov, 3-1 Detroit. So Detroit falls behind 1-0. Yeah, they're like, yeah, that's not going to last long. So it makes it 3-1 after the first period. Then into the second period at 3:12 on the power play, it is Fedorov from Kozlov and Shanahan, 4-1 Red Wings. Then 19:17 of the second period, it is Shanahan, making it 5-1 from McCarty and Fetisov. That is the score at the end of the second period. And then in the third period, on the power play again, at 1:08, it is LaPointe from Fedorov and Vernon. Mike Vernon gets an assist on this one. That makes it 6-1. That's your final. I remember watching, and this was another series I remember, because at the time we taped the Stanley Cup Finals every year. And again, this was a series. I remember watching this game, and I'm just like, yeah, this is over. It's like this is done. Philly's cooked, basically. And they were. It wasn't. Detroit displayed their dominance in not just that game, but in this series. So they win game 3, 6-1. They take a commanding 3-0 lead. Ron Hextall is back in the net for this one. He stops 23 of 29 for a .793 save percentage. Ouch. Mike Vernon, on the other hand, 21 saves on 22 shots for a .955 save percentage. Just unbelievable. Vernon was basically a brick wall. He was amazing in this playoff. He was amazing in this series, too. So we go into game 4, and this one, close game. You were thinking maybe if Philadelphia could just find a way to get one win, just start with one. Nah, not quite. In the first period, goes up until the last minute of the period, and those last minute goals can kill you. At 19:27, it is Lidstrom from Maltby that puts the Red Wings up 1-0. Then, in the second period, a goal that still is on most highlight reels. Just an unbelievable goal. Again, a goal I watched and I was just like, oh my God. Darren McCarty at 13:02 with a goal that still is, look it up. You can find it. 1997, Darren McCarty, Stanley Cup Final goal. You'll find it. Darren McCarty from Tomas Sandstrom and Steve Yzerman makes it 2-0. He deked Ron Hextall out of his skates. Oh man. It was almost criminal. It was almost like a kid taking lunch money. It was just disgusting. in a pretty way, though. This goal was gorgeous. So McCarty puts the Wings up 2-0, and that basically is the game winner. But at least, though, the Flyers, they didn't get shut out. At 19:45 of the third, too little, too late, it's Lindros from Desjardins making it 2-1. That's not good enough. Time runs out. And the Detroit Red Wings win their first Stanley Cup since 1955. Back when this guy was playing for them. One reason why I wore my Gordie Howe jersey, because that was the one big significance of this one was this was the Red Wings' first Stanley Cup since this guy was playing for the Red Wings. So Ron Hextall, not a bad. He didn't have a bad game. He stopped 26 of 28 for a .929 save percentage, which was his best save percentage of the entire series. Mike Vernon, of course, stopped 26 of 27 for a .963 save percentage. You go back and you look at these. .929, .935, .955, and 963. Those were the save percentages for Mike Vernon in the Stanley Cup Final. Needless to say, he wins the Conn Smythe Trophy. Duh. Obvious. I mean, who else were you going to give it to? He was amazing. He started all 20 games for Detroit in that Stanley Cup run. They go 16-4, the Red Wings do. Mike Vernon goes 16-4 with a 1.76 goals against average and a 927 save percentage and one shutout. He is your Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Definitely deserved. And yeah, the Detroit Red Wings, they win their first Stanley Cup since 1955 right here. Of course, the very next year, they would win it again. The big thing after this one, after this series is won, was the tragedy in the limo of Vladimir Konstantinov and Sergei Manetstakhanov, who, from what I heard, he just recently passed away. And that was kind of a bummer to hear that. But and that was after this game. That was literally just a couple hours after the game. Going too fast. The limo driver died. The limo was basically wrapped around a tree. It was ugly. And needless to say, Vladimir Konstantinov, he would not play again. And if he would not have been in the kind of shape that he was in, I got to think he wouldn't have survived. He would not have survived that. It was unbelievable. Just an unspeakable, I mean, you're out, you're celebrating, you just won the Stanley Cup, you're celebrating, and something like that happens. That was heartbreaking. That was heartbreaking for the team, for his family. I mean, I remember hearing news reports, of all of his teammates, just they're hearing the news and they're like, where is he? And they're taking off as quick as they can wherever they were to get to the hospital to be there. And Scotty Bowman, and just it was a bummer. It was a bummer on what should have been an amazing accomplishment. Ended up turning into a pretty bad tragedy at the very end of it. But in the end, the Red Wings win the Stanley Cup. And I mean, how do you kind of transition from a tragedy like that? Fortunately, though, the very next year, Detroit, they would win the Stanley Cup. They would wheel Vladdy onto the ice in his wheelchair. They wheel him on the ice. Steve Yzerman takes the Stanley Cup and he puts it on Vladdy's lap, and he takes a skate. The entire team is behind him, pushing his wheelchair. He's holding it. The smile on his face was so awesome. I was in tears. I literally was in tears watching it. I thought it was fabulous. And I mean, Konstantinov, he never played again. I'm honestly surprised that the Red Wings didn't retire his number. But I don't think anybody really has worn. No, I mean, I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section. Has anybody since Vladdy wore number 16 for Detroit? I don't remember if they have or not. Because to me, I mean, that's always going to be Vladdy's number 16. But yeah, so Red Wings win the 1997 Stanley Cup. That is the memorable series for 1997. And let me know what you guys think. Did you guys watch this? Did you guys watch this series? And did you watch that playoff? How'd you like it? And Were you was it were you kind of disappointed in the outcome, kind of like I was, because I literally thought Philadelphia would have at least made somewhat of an effort in this series, but yeah, Detroit was they were just too much. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Like I said, I know these type of videos don't exactly get a whole ton of views, but they're fun to do, and it's historical, and I love any type of hockey history. To me, it's awesome. And so yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. I would love you forever. Also, too, if you want to share this video or any other video from any other playlists that I have, go right ahead. You can share that with friends, with family. Let it, tell all your friends, tell all your family about the channel, and yeah. So this was the 1990. This was the memorable series for 1997, the 1997 Stanley Cup Final between the Detroit Red Wings and the Philadelphia Flyers. The Detroit Red Wings' first Stanley Cup since 1955. I will see you guys later. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and enjoy.